I'm also thrilled that we are also joined today by Heather MacNaughton from Heritage Environment Scotland, who will be inspiring us with all things our heritage on that theme. So, if you haven't already, please put your name of your school into the chat. And so apart from anything, so you can find the chat function. Most of us are fairly familiar with that. But also, if you have any questions as we go, you can either raise your hand or put something into the chat. When I'm presenting, I'm afraid I kind of get I can't see the chat so well. So it'll be myself or Kat that picks up on that. And please be patient with me and persistent if you have particular questions that I haven't answered. So hello, everybody. I'm going to share my screen just now and do a bit of an introduction for the 2025 Pocket Garden competition. Kat, can you please check, or can somebody just say yes, you can see my screen, so I know that that's showing okay?
Yes, it's fine.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okie dokie. So, yes, Pocket Garden 2025. Absolutely delighted to be running this again. So today what we're going to be doing is I'll be doing a bit of an overview with the nuts and bolts of the competition, and a bit of an introduction to the kind of the key things that you need to be aware of. And as I said, Heather MacNaughton from Heritage Environment Scotland is here today to give us some even better inspiration for the heritage theme. There's some top tips that are available that have been compiled by judges from previous years. And then there's this obviously question and answer. If you have any particular questions, please do say if anything isn't clear as we go, but equally we'll save some time at the end if there's anything that hasn't been covered. So, what is the garden design competition? Well, it's, as it says, a competition for pupils aged 3 to 18 years, and it is a design competition. So if you're not expert growers, that's okay. The competition really is this design feature. And then there is another kind of section once we get to the building and growing side of things, which rewards or looks at the success in translating from design to actual garden. But that's a whole another thing. What we're focusing on right now is the design side of things. The picture on the screen there, yeah, that's the front cover of the competition brochure and guidance. There's full guidance in there that you should follow. There's really good tips about designing and growing sustainably. And I'll talk a little bit more about those a bit later as well. The competition prize is that it wins you a space in the online national showcase. This used to be an in-person event at Gardening Scotland, but that was a victim of COVID as well. So we now have an online version, which is rather wonderful because it opens the competition up to schools that are no longer sort of held back by the logistics of travelling to or from Edinburgh, or the time or the expense involved in that. So it's more open. It also means that there's a voting side of things that opens up to the whole of your whole school community who can then see your garden and get involved. So that's the brochure, and that's downloadable from our website. Kat, are you able to pop a link to that in the chat for me, please? That would be brilliant. So that's what it is. And clearly some of you are already interested enough to turn up today, but there's a whole bunch of reasons why you might want to take part. The evidence we have from the schools that have taken part is it's fun, number one. It's always a good day in the office when we get some of the feedback from schools and some of the designs in. It's the fun kind of seeps off the page or off the emails, if you like. It's just wonderful. It also, of course, builds skills and knowledge for doing things in a more sustainable way. And that's very transferable. So if you think, actually, I'd like to do a little bit more in our school grounds, you might want to start with Pocket Garden and use the principles and the skills and the way of developing that you find out and that you explore through Pocket Garden, and you can apply it more widely in your school grounds. Equally, there's a whole bunch of other curricular outcomes that you can deliver against taking part on biodiversity, climate change, and linking to your communities. A lot of schools find really nice community links with businesses or other skilled individuals that can help out. So that's what it is and why you might want to do it. What about how? We have 3 interlinked themes to inspire you to take part and to inspire you thinking about what your garden might look like. The 2 themes at the bottom of the slide here, gardening for wildlife and growing food for people, are consistent themes. Those have been the themes that have been there for all the years that Pocket Garden has run. And the new theme for 2025 is our heritage. And that can include a lot of things. Very briefly, because we've got Heather's going to talk a bit more about this later. Very briefly, it could go something from a Neolithic standing stone site, and we know there's a lot of those across Scotland. Or it could be something that is very ephemeral, that doesn't necessarily last. It just lasts in the air and then it's gone, it's heard and then it's gone. There's tunes that are passed down to us. And I put the cassette there quite deliberately because the way that we share our music changes, of course, with different technology. So from something that was live to something that's completely digital, all those kind of things that might be part of the heritage that you explore in your garden. And equally, the kind of the tools and the objects that we handle every day to solve the kind of the issues of living, like how we eat or how we travel, all of those have changed over time. And some of them we've held on to, and some of them we've kind of just kept on. We've kept something, we've passed on to something, a new version of it. So there's all of those objects that are around us in our everyday that you might want to explore. How did we cook for ourselves before? And then not just the objects that are associated with cooking, but what did we cook? Was there different food and how was it grown? Is that different? There's all of these aspects of heritage that could be part of the inspiration for your garden. And the little thing on the end there is a reference to kind of the culture, that intangible part of our heritage. So the last sheaf basically of the harvest was tied and made into a kern doll or a harvest doll or something like a corn dolly, and it was felt that it kept the spirit of the harvest, the spirit of the crop was held in there, so it was very precious and very well looked after so that you'd have a good harvest the next year. So there's all these other kind of intangible beliefs that people held on to and celebrated and marked in some way. And weaving is still a thing that people like to do today. In fact, there's a resource. If you like the look of those weaving things, there's a resource that we have, and that's where you download it from, that has instructions to make exactly those little corn things. And that might be something that you might want to have a go at. Also in this resource, Dig Where You Stand, there's a resource that supports you to become a citizen field worker. So these were written when we, as a commission for the Dandelion Project, by ourselves. So yes, if you fancy having a go at being citizen field workers, there's resources there to support you to do that. There's also all sorts of information about other kind of heritage practices, practical skills. That's the weaving and things like that. So there's that for you to explore. And you may already know, but you may not be aware. So just letting you know, if you're thinking of becoming an eco school, or if you already are an eco school, we have a new topic, which is called Our Heritage. So you see the link here. And if you have a look on the Eco Schools website, there's a wheen of resources there that you can explore for further ideas and a bit of inspiration for your garden. There's also a recording of a live lesson on there that you can take a look at too. So that's kind of the themes side of thing. there's also some design principles that your design must follow and must show it somehow in your design. So the 5 principles in the blue on, is that the left or the right? Will be the left side view of your screen. So locally sourced, seasonal, reducing waste, organic, and ethical sourcing are the 5 principles that we need you to follow in your design. So there's a little explanation against each of those, and this table appears in the brochure, so I'm not going to read that out. But clearly organic is because you're including food for people, so you don't want to be using sprays on there that kill things. And ethically sourced, that's a mandatory thing about being peat free. So any kind of compost or mulch must ideally be made sort of locally in the school, but if you're buying something, it must be peat free. Okay, so that's the 5 principles, and as I say, that table is in the brochure as well. So how are you going to put your ideas down, and how are you going to share them with us? Basically, there are no rules about that. It's as best suits you. But what we do ask is that you accompany your drawings with notes like these that are on the screen just now. So it could be hand drawn, or it could be computer generated, or it could be a poster. Or there's one at the bottom there, which is a photograph of a collection of items that happened to be a school that was had some building done, and this was rubbish that was left over from the builders, and they said, we'll use that as part of our garden, and indeed they did. But they put it all together how they were going to use it and labeled it to show how they were going to be using it. And as you can see, there's a design there from an early years setting. So just to reiterate here that the design competition isn't being judged on the quality of the drawing. What we need to see is the ideas. We do want to see actually that the children have been involved in that process. We really do want to see that that's happened. But that may require that the teacher does some interpretation for us, so that you're representing all the ideas, and so we can see clearly what everything represents. If you can do a bird's eye view, like a top-down view, as well as something from the side, so elevation and plan views, that is brilliant. That's kind of that's extremely helpful for us to understand the vision of what's going on. So yes, notes on objects, notes on plants. If you want to accompany your picture with notes like plant lists, things like that, that's all extremely welcome. So all of those designs there, that was from Elgo Primary, Families Growing Together in Fife, Summerside Kindergarten, Seafield Primary, and Bankery Primary. I skipped a few, there we go. Key dates, again, you'll find these in the brochure, but just if you want to write them down now. The deadline for the competition entries is the Friday, the 21st of February, so you've got a few weeks to pull this all together. And the judges are meeting that very next week. So at the end of that following week, everybody will be notified whether they've been successful in that competition. And then you've got from the 3rd of March until the 4th of June to build and grow and build and grow and build and grow, and hopefully enjoy some sunshine before the online showcase, which is open during those dates. And that's when the voting happens. So just also to let you know, in terms of support, that we have a fantastic team of mentors available who are able to help you with your design processes. They can't design your garden for you, but if you would like some support with the design side of things, maybe just like, well, what plants could we choose for that? There's the email there to contact to say, please tell me about some mentors, and I can send you out the list of mentors, and then it's up to you to contact them directly. But I would advise that you contact them. Some of them have been mentors for multiple years, are very experienced, not just in the gardening side of things, but also in supporting you, and they kind of understand the needs of the competition, what grows well in Scotland, what grows quickly in Scotland, all that sort of a thing. So I'll just give you a moment to jot that one down or take a screenshot if you wish. But that's to let me know. And if you do get in contact about the mentors, please do say mentors, please, so that I know why you're contacting me. Okay, so just a little summary there. Make sure you download the brochure and check out all the design principles and the themes, because there's inspiration in there as well. The other thing, on the Pocket Garden homepage, there's a top tips guide for growing, and that's really good also because there's a section in there about preparing for growing, because whether you win or not, you just think, actually, do you know what, we just want to grow our garden, we're invested in our design, we're going to grow it anyway. And there's this excellent list of things you can do already in preparation for being just super on it at the beginning of the growing season, ready to get started and give your plants the best chance of looking their best in early June. And just for inspiration, there's a couple of finished gardens here from previous years. That's Anna Ritchie ASN and Oak Grove Primary School. And a couple of things I wanted to point out with these two finished designs. You can see the Lighthouse Keeper's Lunch garden. They built a lighthouse from tubs, which all had the same colour kind of thing. So they're using found materials. It was just basically a bit of tarmac there, and they've built up from the tarmac, and they made a little bed and planted into that against the railings. And the garden on the other side, it was basically a patch which had an old tree stump, and that new patch was made completely new. It was just rough grass. You can see sort of beyond the tree stump, it was just rough grass before, and what a transformation that they've made there just by putting in a few colourful plants in there. It really does bring it to life, and that tree stump becomes an inspiration for all sorts of imaginative play at that point. Oh, okay, so it's time for me now to stop sharing my slides and hand over to Heather.
Hi, nice to be part of this today. My name is Heather MacNaughton. I'm Strategic Partnerships Manager at Historic Environment Scotland, and I'm just going to really today pick up the theme of heritage, really, and to share some thoughts, ideas around what heritage means and could mean to you in your places. So just bear with me while I share my slides for you. And can someone confirm they can see that okay?
Yes, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. So yeah, at Historic Environment, we're the lead public body in Scotland that looks after the historic environment, and we've got a vision in Scotland that that heritage is recognised internationally for both heritage and culture, and everyone has a part to play in cherishing, understanding and sharing this heritage with pride. And that's why we're really pleased that Keep Scotland Beautiful has chosen heritage as a theme for the Pocket Garden competition, because it provides a new way to reach and inspire our children and young people to understand, interpret and celebrate their heritage in their places. So what do we mean by the historic environment? People interplay heritage and the historic environment all the time. So whenever I use that, just see it as both for today. But it's this historical evidence, it's the physical evidence that human activity has caused, that connects people with their place and linked with the associations we can see, feel and understand. And it's everything that's been created by people over time. And this can range from what we call tangible cultural heritage, like this impressive castle at Calaverick just outside Dumfries, or evidence through the buildings in our places. This is Campbelltown, which has a huge area that's covered by conservation area status, or it could be festivals like the one up in Shetland, the Heliar Festival, and other traditions and languages. And over the next few slides, I'm just going to provide some other examples, which I hope will shape your thinking to share with your classes. You may not be familiar with all of them, but wherever you are in Scotland, you'll have your own heritage and things that are important to your community. And these are really just intended as pointers today. So I've tried to break them down into sort of key themes. So within heritage, we've got our places. And those places can be something like this 17th century garden at Drummond Castle in Perthshire, which has evolved over time and is now really recognised as something with of significance within our inventory of garden designs and landscapes. And this is really the top end of garden design, and you can see how much thought has gone into its development over hundreds of years. But really the key principle of the design in this one is about how the eye is drawn through the garden, through the way that it's planted, and onwards into the distance is the most amazing, stunning view if you're up on the raised area where this photograph was taken. But also our heritage is underground too, and I've provided an example here of Skara Brae in Orkney. It's one of the most impressive Neolithic settlements anywhere in Western Europe, and what's been uncovered there shows the sorts of things that were grown in the area. I mean, they've lasted that long, so we know that wheat and barley were grown there. So these could have been one of the earliest farming communities. But a community within a place can decide also about what's significant for them and their heritage. So I've included an image here, which is the early skate park that was opened in Livingston in 1981. It was internationally renowned for the skater scene. And the community there have decided it's so important that it should be listed and protected. So it could be something more modern, or something that goes back thousands of years. So there's heritage in our places, and it can influence your designs. So we also have a sort of category around built heritage in our communities in Scotland. And again, that spans all sorts of different building types. So we've got here the Forth Rail Bridge with its rust red colours, which was completed in 1990, and that's now a World Heritage Site in Scotland. But when I looked at that image, I was thinking, well, how might you replicate that in a garden design? And I was immediately struck by dogwood, which is a plant that grows in lots of car parks and shopping centres. They use it for borders around shopping centre car parks, but it replicates those beautiful red colours on the bridge. Just as an example. So we have brocks in Scotland. They're unique to Scotland, but thinking about how the brocks were formed, but also what grows around them, what colours are around them. And then architecture, such as the Palace at Curos in Fife. These palaces were often set in manicured landscape grounds for its residents to enjoy, but it was also somewhere that things were grown for the household. So again, it easily covers a heritage theme. And finally, the houses that we live in are also our heritage. 1 in 5 of us in Scotland live in what are known as traditionally built houses. That's pre-1919 houses, such as tenements. And within these tenement blocks, you have beautiful decorative features like tiled floors, ironwork on the railings, the features up on the tops of the buildings. Again, all of these things can help people get a sense of their heritage in the place that they live, but also can influence design. Another area that most communities have, wherever they are in Scotland, is some form of activity that might have taken place in their daily lives over time. And I think Eve touched on some of those earlier, but I've just captured some here. Weaving is as a key part of Scottish heritage. This example is from Nakando in Moray, where weaving has taken place for over 200 years. And historically, the wool would have been dyed with pigments from plants and leaves and fruits or roots collected locally, such as blaeberries, elderberries, heather and bracken. So that connection to the skill of weaving with the need for different plant types to form the colours was part of our heritage. Maybe something that we eat. These are our broth smokies. Again, really key to a particular heritage of a particular area. Our agricultural heritage has created particular breeds. These are belted Galloway cows, so they're very unique to Galloway. I mean, they're across the world now, but they are very much started in Galloway. Or it could be traditions such as stonemasonry or ironmongery. This example here, you can see the intricate detail within the stonemasonry work. So again, these activities have shaped the places they're located and informed a way of life, and very much unique to the place that they take place in. And these activities might inform your designs and ideas. There's also lots of collections across Scotland. So, you know, our museums host all sorts of different collections that might inspire your garden designs. It could be stained glass, such as this one in Glasgow Cathedral. These are sailmakers' tools in the Maritime Museum. And it could also be something like our industrial heritage, so you know, the steam trains in Bo'ness and Kinneil. But it's thinking about what was the impact of this heritage in our place, what materials were used, why did they need those things. If you think about the sailmakers' tools there, they're made from all sorts of different woods and create different colours. And finally, just our heritage is also our culture. So again, Eve touched on this a little bit too, but you know, our culture is around poetry. We've got Burns's Ellison Farm. That's his writing desk at the farm, where of course he created the red, My Love Is Like a Red, Red Rose. We've got traditional songs. I've come across one recently called The Flowers of Edinburgh. And we've got other sorts of cultures such as dance, and dancing was inspired also by sort of flowers and flora and fauna. So just in terms of if you wanted a little bit more reading around heritage and to have access to a sort of guide, this is a document that we produce for communities when they're thinking about planning their heritage. It's called Talking About Heritage, and the guide's broken down into different component parts. But each of those parts will maybe just help you have some conversations with your children and young people to think about heritage. I'd suggest that parts 1 to 3 are probably the most relevant for you, but it'll give you access to links to photographs, historic records, understanding what's significant in your place, a whole range of different things. So if you want a quick read, it's not a difficult read. The link is on the screen. You can download it directly from our site. And finally, I've got some other useful resources there. One of the key things you can do if you've got the time is to go and visit your heritage, look, touch if you can, explore, understand better. For Historic Environment Scotland, we look after over 300 sites across Scotland, some more well known than others, such as Edinburgh Castle, but we can arrange free learning visits for schools to our sites. So I've popped a link on there to show how you do that. We have free learning resources on our sites for schools, so I've provided a link for that. And also a link for the National Record for Scotland and SCRAN, which provides all of the historic photographs of collections that we hold across Scotland. Archaeology Scotland has some great learning resources for schools too, and I thought I'd also pop in the National Trust for Scotland's guide for gardens, which again may inspire thoughts. So I hope that's helped you. Let's come off stop sharing. Bear with.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Heather.
Okay, sorry that I can't see you now anymore. Sorry, I disappear.
That's fine. We can still hear you, and you've finished showing your slides. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Heather. There's a huge amount that people can explore there. I hope people have sort of already got some ideas buzzing on as a result of that. So lastly, before we move into questions, some top tips, and these are collated over the years, and I'm seeing sort of things that come round again and again that we know that we can support schools with avoiding some of the pitfalls that some people have found beforehand. So here's my wee list of top tips. Make sure you know what your flowering times are if you have flowering plants in your garden. We're aiming for the garden to be looking at its best in early June. So check when they're going to be in flower. It may be that if you need a plant to be in flower for a particular colour, it might be that it won't grow quickly enough from seed, and you might need to buy a small plant of that variety or try and source that from the community somehow. And think about the available space and how big your plants are going to grow, so that you make sure, apart from anything, that the whole space is filled. If you have lots of plant pots, try to make sure you've got plants that are in front of the plant pot material, because we just want to be seeing the plants and not necessarily the containers, unless there's a particular message. That's point number 4, is filling the spaces in between any containers. And one of the things that schools have been very clever about is try to reuse containers as plant pots. But if you're doing that, please have a thought about how big your container is. Something as small as a yogurt pot will dry out incredibly quickly, so it increases the amount of times you have to water it, and it makes it a little bit more vulnerable. So larger containers are better. They'll need watering obviously still, but they won't dry out quite as quickly. If you have a garden that has walk around, like you can see all different sides of it, make sure that you're paying attention to what it looks like from all sides. The 2 gardens that I showed earlier had a defined back end to them, sort of thing. If your back end is going to be visible, yes, if the back end of the garden is going to be visible, then make sure that that's decorated and that it's equally attractive. So from that angle, people approaching go, oh, there's something to look at here. Have regard to the properties of the materials that you use. The garden, although it's small, will still need to be robust, and it will need to be able to deal with whatever the Scottish weather throws at it. So if you're using cardboard, probably not the right material. But if you need something a little bit more robust, again, lots of schools in the past have gone out to communities and asked for donations of all sorts of things, actually. I'm remembering sort of like different things like clocks and things like that have been donated, which add so much character, or can add so much character to a garden, or wheelbarrows, things like that. If you want to have water in your garden, real flowing water in your garden, again, the materials that you use need to be considered really carefully, and think about how it flows. We have had gardens in the past that have moving water in them, like little pumps that are attached to solar panels. So they're charged through solar power, which is, I mean, there's so much STEM learning right there if you have somebody who's going to be keen to do that. Okay. Just a little case study for you. I'm going to fly through here of a school that took part last year and they based they tied it really closely to the curriculum, and they also based their Eco Schools Green Flag application on their 2 pocket gardens that they did. It became quite a focus for them. So they put in 2 designs in both of the lower age categories, the nursery to P4 category and the P5 to S1 category, and both were winners. So it worked really nicely for them. The one on the left there is called Super Bee, and was based on a bumblebee that is found and makes its home in the Machar, which is the particular habitat that's very local to them. And the next one, I'm not going to pronounce the Gaelic there because I don't want to mangle it, was based on weaving. So they had a whole weaving structure, and the plants were mirroring the colours that were in the tartan. So the sorts of learning that they did, well, right, starting at the basics, what sort of ground have we got? Have we ever investigated the soil that we're walking on every day? So there was that process right to start with. It's like, is this soil any good? Can we work with this? And they actually decided in the end to move where they were going to site their gardens to find better soil. And you can see there's in the second picture, there's a sheet of cardboard. So that was one of the ways that they used to help improve the soil, and to add and also to stop the soil that's on the surface being washed away or trodden away on boots and things. There's a huge amount of practical activity associated with building and growing a garden, and lots of associated tool use. There's some adults obviously in these pictures, and particularly the one on the side there, teaching about how they are using safe use of all these different tools. So again, another opportunity to learn about the properties of different materials, and maths and physics about how you join things together and is it robust. And there were very strong links to the community. This greenhouse was owned in the community, so they were gifted space within the greenhouse to bring on their small plants, which as a Western Isles school, I think it was very, very grateful. They were very grateful for that space and having a better microclimate to bring the young plants on, and before they could put them outside. And you can see there's a lot of plants that they're growing. Excuse me. And I would encourage you to grow considerably more than you think you will need, which gives you leeway for if something doesn't quite work, or if some things fail, or if they get attacked, you've still got spares there. If you find at the end of it, you've still got plants, more plants than you need for your garden, I'm confident that they will find homes to go to. Strong links to the community. They made links with various businesses who came into school and shared their skills, practical skills, with the children. And the chap on the right there talking about some of the local plants. This is a local seaweed, but also they did at the beginning. They did a beach clean as part of their work, and used what they found on the beach to form part of the objects within the garden. So they didn't have to buy in stuff, they used what they found. So this is a couple of photographs of bringing things together, and the excitement and that process about the energy that is generated when the things start to come together. And a couple of photographs of the 2 finished gardens there. I just want to finish on this and let you read those for a while. This is feedback from 2 schools who took part previously, and they kind of speak for themselves. But just wanted to let you read that just while you have a think about if there's any questions. Either you can unmute yourself and speak directly, or pop your hand up, or put a question into the chat if there's anything that you still would like to know, or if there's anything we haven't covered, or if something isn't quite clear. Okay, I hope that gives you enough of a moment to read those. Does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I think I'm going to, yes, stop sharing so you can speak with me directly. Wendy. Hi, Wendy. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Hi. Sorry, I've got a cat on my lap. I was just wondering, I work in a secondary setting,
Yeah.
and I've got one pupil who I work with doing literacy, but on a Friday afternoon, I've got him all afternoon, and I was hoping to do the competition with him, but it's just one person. Does it have to be a whole class? Yeah, I
That's
think
a
he
great
would
question.
be.
It doesn't have to be a whole class. We have
Okay.
in the past had winners exactly in that situation where a support worker or a support member of staff is working with an individual who is particularly interested, and it's worked very well.
Yeah, I think he would
So
get a lot out of it. That's
it's
super.
perfectly possible. And yeah, I'd be
Okay,
delighted to see an entry. Thanks, Wendy.
thank you.
Miss Kerr.
Hi, it's just a wee quick question. So we have got like an allotment that we've built in our garden, but the next project we're starting the next couple of weeks is building like a greenhouse.
Oh.
Does that come under like two separate entries, or is it one entry, or how would we go about it?
Do you mean would the building the greenhouse be an entry and then the allotment an entry? Is that the question?
Yes. Yeah.
It I think what you could do, because it's a design competition and a greenhouse needs to perform certain functions that mean that mean you have to use particular materials to grow it, and it needs to be a sort of particular size and shape. That might limit using that as your framework for a pocket garden. If I was you, I would be tempted to use your allotment space, but still keep it quite open and say, take a corner of the allotment where you're going to have your pocket garden, and give the pupils free choice about what features might appear within the space, and let them be inspired by our heritage theme as much as the gardening for wildlife and food for people. The other thing to do actually is to have a wee look at the stories, the pocket garden stories. There's and in fact the last year's showcase, so it gives you an idea and a flavour of the sorts of things that can be done.
Okay, because the greenhouses, all the supplies are getting donated to us from local communities and local businesses, and it's just the frame of the wood, and then we're using like the outcast, like to keep it like insulated as such, would be like plastic bottles that are also going to be donated from families in our centre. So it's not like going to be like the like a typical greenhouse with the glass or the plastic coverings. It was just wanting to know, would that come under second entry, or would we just keep it to the allotment?
No, you keep it to a particular design for a space in the allotment, but your design needs to think about our heritage and growing plants for wild, or something that's good for wildlife there as well. And the other thing that I didn't mention in there in terms of the design principles is that it's a limited space. It can't be your whole allotment. It's a very so that it's equal across different schools and different school grounds. It's a small space, so make sure that your design can fit within sort of 1 metre by 1.20 meters, pretty much. But and no higher than 2 meters tall. That's the other one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Does anybody have any other questions? It doesn't look like it. Okay, well, then let's draw this little twilight to a close. But just say again, I'm going to share my screen again so that my email is still there. If you think of any, take a note of it. If you think of anything between now and the deadline and you want to check something out, please do feel free to email me. and look forward to seeing lots of designs. And thanks again to Heather for joining us and for all your words of inspiration. Thanks, everybody, and good luck.